discussion. This is a panel discussion featuring the 6 artists from Hands of Knowledge, an exhibition on view at the Bill Reid Gallery until September 26th. My name is Ali Boubard, and I'm the assistant curator here at the Bill Reid Gallery. And I'd first like to start off by acknowledging that the Bill Reid Gallery is located on the unceded ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, and we're really grateful that we're able to do our work on these territories. So today our panel discussion will last about 90 minutes, and we'll be leaving some time at the end for questions. So anytime throughout the discussion, if you want, you can feel free to leave your questions into the chat, and then we'll be able to answer them at the end. And then I guess without further ado, I'll pass it along to Joanne, the curator of the exhibition, and she'll get started with our discussion.
Thank you, Alia. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome, everybody, to our panel discussion with the artists, the 6 artists from Hands of Knowledge. Today we have Dale Campbell, Arlene Ness, Pearl Innis, Kelli Clifton, and Patricia Vickers. Did I mention everybody? And Marie Oldfield. These 6 artists came together with me to develop this show. This has been a 2-year journey. The last year, well, because of COVID, it was very challenging to do the work, but these artists persevered, and we all persevered and got through it together. And Bill Reid Gallery has just been fantastic with, supporting us in getting this work done and displaying it at their wonderful gallery. And I'd really like to thank them for that. I curated the exhibit, and tonight in talking with the artists, I have called this panel discussion, Matriarch Mindset. Now, mindset is like, how I understand mindset is a set of beliefs, and it guides how I think about things, how I view things, how I behave in certain situations. So that's why I called it Matriarch Mindset, because I look at these artists as all matriarchs in their own ways, with decision making about their art, their strength in their communities. And that's kind of what I want to focus on today, is what these artists are saying through their work. The theme of the Hands of Knowledge was past, present, future, spiritual, supernatural energy, the process that artists use in making our art and where it comes from, the history of that art. So these things are all very important to our discussion today. So I sent a list of questions to the artists and to give them some time to think about it. I think what I will do is direct a question to one artist to start the conversation. The first thing I was wondering about is, how do you think of your art connects to your community? So Arlene, I'm going to put you on the spot here, because I'm really interested in finding out, how do you think your art connects to the community? Like, where does it come from? Where is it going? I'm interested in hearing about that. And you're muted, so we'll. There you go.
Hi, sorry about that. Well, I think my art, it directly connects me to my community. I create regalia and ceremonial pieces for the wilfs and the chiefs in my community and a little bit beyond. And carving totem poles as part of the carving team that, the poles are standing in the community, and we had a big celebration. Everybody was out, and we just had the schools showing up, and so much support throughout the whole carving process. Like, our workshop was open to the community and visitors, and some people would be just hanging out there all day with us, and people I haven't seen in a while, usually they come out of the woodwork and they want to be a part of this. So it is very much a community project, usually when we have a totem pole going on and there's a group of us carving. I also get this really personal connection to all of the people who come to me for jewelry because they want their story told. And some of it's got to do with their adult, their history, and some of it's just very personal. And I get to interpret that for them. And then I explain my interpretation, and their eyes just light up because they have this connection, this design that's just made for them. And it just means so much, you know, to have our historical art and brought forward to today. And some of the stories in our history they're quite supernatural. You know, it's our connection to our Noknok, our spirit, our ancestors. So we're very privileged, you know, to get that intimate view, just not my own Wilps adult, but the details of the other family's history. And it's a position of trust too, honor and trust. And another way it connects me, my art connects me to the community would be, I teach form line design, I teach knife making, I teach carving, and through workshops in the schools. And I was kind of brought forward to teach these almost at the beginning of my learning when I went to school. So I went to the elementary schools in 2006. I was almost dismayed to see the lack of general knowledge for identifying the basic shapes and form line. So I became like driven. I wrote letters to schools. I called band offices. I did all I could and told them, like, when I was in elementary school, we knew what these shapes were. We knew what an ovoid was and a U shape. We knew these. And the kids in 2006, I'd ask for a showing of hands, like, who knows what an ovoid is? And I expected, you know, almost half at least, but there's one kid in this elementary school, and it was on reserve school too. So you drive by houses with house designs on painted on their siding. So it's not like it wasn't there, but the focus wasn't. It was all about, you know, learning what the curriculum was. So I created a workshop for the teachers on Professional Development Day. I had participants from Prince George to Prince Rupert, and I just developed this program of suggestions on how you can incorporate just these basic introductions of Gitsan form line elements into regular curriculum, and how to recognize these animal designs and shapes. You know, kept it to like grade specific introductions, and it was just such a hit. Everybody loved it and they wanted more. So I suggested they reach out to their local Indigenous artists in their community and get them to teach, because I'm not going to be teaching Wet'suwet'en art or Niska. You know, that's not my place to teach someone else's nation style. So in that way, I connected to a lot of communities. So this art is definitely a doorway.
That's it. That's very interesting, Arlene, and way to go. That's leadership. So did you want to pass it on to somebody else? I think that's the way we'll work. Maybe is that when you're done, you'll give the mic to somebody else.
Carver I really greatly admire, never met yet in person, Dale Campbell. Would you please share your words of wisdom?
Hi, Arlene. Hi. Yeah, how my artwork connects to the community is, like, for one thing, I volunteered when they first started the cruise line happening here. I volunteered days of just sitting down at the Fairview there and sharing my artwork with the tourists that came by. And then also the community arts council here in Rupert, they had a kind of like a sharing your studio with the public in Prince Rupert. And so I volunteered for that, and people would come, because my studio is in my home. So I had people come knocking at the door, you know, and they ask questions about my artwork, and I shared the stories and showed pictures, because I have a big photo album and stuff of my work. So that's how I've connected with the community in that sense. I did 2-week workshops with the community college, the old community college, for their break. Like they're doing other school stuff, but they needed a break. So I'd go in there and do a basic design course, which was really great. I really enjoyed that. And then as far as the Prince Rupert goes, that's basically what I did. And but also other communities. I was a national Native role model for 6 years. I traveled across Canada to, you would not believe how many strange different places. I got stories I could tell you about, like getting dropped off in northern Manitoba. Their airport was just a dirt road strip and a garage sitting there. And I'm sitting there on my suitcase waiting for my contact to come and pick me up. Like I never knew who was going to meet me at the airport. They just have a sign, you know, and I'd be, oh, okay, that's the person there kind of thing, right? So that's what I did. And I went to many cities across Canada, many reserves, many small communities. It was unbelievable. What an unbelievable experience I had. And I didn't know if I could do that, right? It was like, I don't know if I could do this. And I remember phoning to my hon. My first thing was to speak to a high school in Kamloops. And I said to him, I don't know if I can do this. Like, oh my God, I don't even think I slept the night before, right? So anyways, I walked in there and then my driver had me late. So they're all sitting there, you know, high school. And I walked in there and I went, oh my God, you know, but you know, it's really funny. Once I started talking, it was just one thing led into another. And I just talked about my artwork and how I got to do it and, you know, and it was just amazing. And after it was done, it was like, I can do this, you know. And then when I started realizing how important it was to go and speak to these kids, because some of them will never leave their reserve. Some of them, they know nothing about anything other than their reserve where they live. And I would go in there and I do workshops with carving and karate. But then I shared, you know, my personal side of my life with them, what I went through when I was younger. And they had identified with me. And then they would say, oh, she went through that, but look at her now. Look what she's doing with her life. And then when I got asked, you know, really amazing questions, and kids would talk to me about stuff, it was so powerful. It was scary. Because one time I remember this young girl, we're watching this video, and it was of the totem pole raising that I helped carve a 30-foot totem pole here. And the whole community, the whole city participated in the pole raising. And I just said to her, oh, there's my cousin Elvis. You know, he died. He committed suicide, I said. And she looked at me. She was holding a baby. She said to me, she said, I often think of doing that myself. And I went, in my mind, I went, oh my God, what am I going to say to this girl? Whatever I say, it is like detrimental to her future. And all I could think of saying to her was, well, you know what? When I have a really bad day, I always remember that tomorrow I can start over again. I got another day. She goes, oh, I'm gonna remember that. So it was just like, whew. But I've always been so thankful that I was able to do that. That was just an amazing experience for me. Yeah. So. So did you want me to pass it off to someone?
Yes, could you pass it to the next artist?
Kelli.
Good afternoon, Dale. Thank you. Hopefully everyone doesn't hear the background noise. My neighbor's mowing his lawn, so that's the joys of Zoom. I think for me, the way that my artwork connects to my community, surrounding communities the most is through language. So I've been learning some Aliach for the past 5 years, and I've been fortunate to teach it in our school district alongside fluent speakers. And I'm currently teaching it at the high school. So I find that the more involved I get in my language learning, the more it shows in my artwork. And it is my goal that that will encourage more people to learn their traditional languages. And I'm really fortunate to have been involved in certain projects in our community that highlight this integration of traditional art as well as our language. For example, at our high school, they've created a mural with 5 of my designs, and I asked if we could have a Somaliach word to go with each of the designs. So one of the first things you see when you walk into our high school and look left is the main room there with our local designs as well as our local language. So I think it's really important for the Indigenous students to see themselves recognized at the school that they go to, but also for the non-Indigenous students to just learn more about the land of the people that they learn on, and to acknowledge that that we are the people who are originally here. And another project that I was fortunate to be a part of was a mural that was put up on one of the elementary schools. And that was titled Honam Ksien, which means skein of salmon. And I know that many people from around our area have a strong connection to the Skeena River. So I personally grew up fishing on the Skeena River with my dad, and I have some of my fondest summer memories going out gill net fishing with him by hand. So I wanted to just kind of share that positive relationship with the river in this mural. And it was really special at the opening, having young students come up to me and share their stories with the river. And yeah, I think so. And even just giving it a title in some Aliach, and at the opening of the event, that was my first time speaking that much Somaliach ever. So that in itself was, I think, incredible for all of those young students to see someone like myself speaking that much of our language and showing that it is possible to learn. It doesn't matter what age you start learning. I always tell people that. My students, whenever they get frustrated, I say, hey, you're a teenager. I didn't start learning until I was in my late 20s. So I mean, you don't need to get frustrated. Take it one day at a time. And one word that you learn that you didn't know yesterday is one word more. And your ancestors are just very proud of you every single time you speak, whether it's one word, a sentence, or whether you're able to hold an entire conversation. So yeah, I think for me, that's my biggest connection at this point, is celebrating our language and encouraging others to learn it through my artwork.
Awesome.
I will pass it on to Pearl.
Hi. I feel that my art connects to my community because my art form belongs to our people. It's not just an art form, it has a purpose, and that's why I weave. It's part of our regalias. We use our weavings in our culture and our feasting, celebrations, and gatherings where it's appropriate to do so. And that's really important to me. That's the whole reason why I started weaving. I didn't grow up having hats, and I would see cedar hats once in a while. A lot of the Haidas wove the hats, and not very many of my people had the hats. So I started weaving and teaching that because I wanted to see more of it. And with my Chilkat weaving too, I didn't grow up seeing that. I never seen our chiefs dressed in robes, and it was just something that was missing. So I seek that out, and I put a lot of work into it, as other weavers do, and bringing that back to our community. The other thing I do is I do workshops in our communities. I go back and I do cedar hat weaving. I do basketry with the school systems. And my last workshop was really neat. I had these 3 young girls who kept coming back after hours, wanting to do more and more. And they told me, they said, when I grow up, I want to be a weaver. And I was just so touched by that. I was like, you already are a weaver, you know, and you could be anything you want. And it was so inspiring. And it just made me feel so happy that this is going to continue on with our people, and the young people are interested in it. And yeah, so I think that's all I have to say about that. And I will pass it on to Patricia.
Thanks, Pearl. My community started really small. My oldest brother, Roy, would be carving in the basement, and I'd be watching him. So for me, the art began, I didn't know, but just watching that, and then moved into, so what happens is artists, I find, are really generous. And so Roy would connected me to Philip Janzi and Glenn Wood, and they taught me how to applique. And then it moved from there to, I used applique skills to create a chief screen for Nelson Leeson in the NAS. And my kids all participated in painting the flying frog. And that was so much fun. I wanted to do so many more chief screens after that, when I began to understand what part art plays in community, and how it's like a glue that holds everything together. And I moved from, I still love to do those things. I still love to applique. They were great teachers, Phil and Glenn. And now what I do mainly is oil and acrylic paintings. And what really strikes me is Arlene mentioned noch, and how the supernatural, and artists would really know this, how the supernatural play an important part in our creative force and our creativity and our healing as well. So for me, it's been a gradual awakening to how we're all connected. So I'm going to pass it on to Marie now.
Good afternoon. It's really interesting listening to you guys. Said everything I wanted to say, by the way. It just in a different way. I'm a weaver, and I've been weaving for quite a while. I started sharing. I got asked to go and teach in the schools for in the school district in Prince Rupert as a role model. So I took age appropriate classes and materials to different grades, and started by sharing how to weave simple little things like headbands and mats and little berry baskets, and I did that for a number of years. And then I was talking to a lady who said, you know, I'd really like to get this out to the greater community. Can you come into the Friendship House? And so I went into the Friendship House for a number of years, and we'd have a Tuesday and Thursday night, mostly women's group that wanted to learn to weave. And I said, well, I teach this style of weaving, so if you're from another nation, know that you should go and learn your people's way of weaving. For now, I can teach you the techniques that I know. So I did that for a number of years. I've always wanted to, since my first Ravenstail weaving, that has been my passion. And I've always wanted, dreamt of going up potluck to the all nothing still, and the reawakening of our culture to me, as if I could see it being used every day as everyday objects. And so that's been a passion of mine. So the way it connects to community is I've done my fair share of going and sitting at tables and doing the tourist thing and all of that kind of stuff. But if anybody gets in touch with me, especially our people, I want to go and teach that, especially in the North, because that's where I'm from. That's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see us treating it as everyday objects again. So, you know, I've taught out in the community of Prince Rupert. I've taught in the school district. I've done my share of traveling around different places and attending art shows. But to me, my real passion is to teach my people and to reawaken that in them. That Ravenstail comes from this area. You know, this is like one of the oldest form weaving, and I want them to be as artwork and the pieces that I give away. I know that we all do. Every last one of us women artists, we all donate, we all give away, we all share pieces. What I to see is that more education, not just our people, but in the world, that they understand who we are, where this art comes from, and the passion that reawakens in our people.
Thank you, Marie.
Joanne, back to you.
Thank you, Marie. Yeah, it's really interesting. The comments make me think about, you know, where did our art come from and where is it going is a continuous theme throughout this entire show. And these are interesting questions. And these raise important points about the revitalization. And I talk about that in my curatorial statement in the catalog about the history, the art history of Indigenous artists across Canada, but I can only speak to this area here where I'm from. And this show is also making the point about the Northwest Coast art. That's why it's called that, because it actually started. Our people, our ancestors created, invented, and perfected that art. And we are only following in their footsteps, the art that we are continuing to make. The next question is, how do you feel about having your work showcased? So I think we'll go in the same order again. Who did we start with?
Arlene, me.
Okay.
I am just so honored to have my work showcased in this esteemed group of Northwest Coast artists that are all women. When I started, the number of recognized women artists was kind of low. Now it seems the population of Indigenous female artists has boomed. Like it's not such an unusual thing to see. Like some classes I have taught have a large percentage of female participants now as compared to in the beginning. And some of the classes that I was a part of, I would be one of 2 females in a whole class of carving class or the artwork. And, you know, even back in high school, taking part in something like woodworks, it wasn't really a usual thing that was encouraged to have the women take these classes. Now, just to see that same boom in population for female artists to be reflected in the shows and the galleries is the next step. And that's what I'm just so happy that you are a driving force behind that, Joanne.
Thank
So
you.
I'd like to thank you for that. And on to Dale.
I also am very honored to be a part of this show. This is like the second all-women art show I've ever been in. And the last one was at the Altringa Gallery in Victoria. God, my son was like 3 years old then, now he's 27. So I mean, there's like a huge gap as, you know, the last one and now. And I think it is like, I feel so grateful to be in this show with you, other women artists, fantastic artists. And it's so interesting for me to hear your stories. And I'm sure like the public is really enjoying hearing our stories. So why don't more galleries have more all women art shows? You know, like there's so many of us out there now. And I hear from the Frida Deasing School, there's so many women coming out of there.
Cool.
It's just incredible, right? It's amazing. I think it's amazing. Yeah. And ever since I ever heard that the Bill Reed Gallery had opened up, I remember thinking, oh, I'd love to be in that gallery one day, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So yeah, I'm really excited about the show. Really excited and so grateful towards Joanne for, you know, getting this show together and of course the Bill Reed Gallery too. But Joanne, you know, you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.
And I'll pass it on to Kelli.
Yeah, I agree with Arlene and Dale. I think that there's something really special and unique about this exhibition and this group of women artists. I think that, as the others have mentioned, there are quite a few women Northwest Coast artists. And I have noticed specifically with Bill Reed Gallery highlighting many women artists. So I would like to thank them for that as well. And I hope that this is kind of just the beginning. I would love to continue to be in shows that highlight women artists, because I do think that we have unique stories to tell and our stories should be highlighted. I would also like to add that I am just incredibly honored to be in the presence of these incredible artists. I have a poster of Dale from 1993. She was part of the poster series.
Me too.
And
Aw.
how old would I have been at the time? I was born in 88, so I was quite young. And she wrote "To Kelli" on it, and she provided some type of very inspirational quote, and I think it's just so special that I still have that poster to this day.
Aw.
And now I'm in a show with Dale. So I mean, it's really incredible to think how much of an impact we can have on other people's
Yeah.
lives. So I think that the more exposure we get, the more chance we have to influence others. So
Yeah.
With that being said, I will pass it to Pearl.
For me, I feel humbled. There are other amazing weavers out there who also deserve to have their weaving showcased. Also, in a way, it feels strange. My weavings are usually intended for our people and for our culture. They're to be worn and not displayed. So in a way that kind of feels a little strange to me.
Yeah.
It feels different showing them to the world opposed to my own people, but I'm very honored to have them showcased at the Bill Reid Art Gallery. I feel they have a great respect and understanding for First Nations people and their art. And I too am really honored to be a part of this show with all these amazing women. And thank you, Joanne, for putting this all together. It's amazing. It's a great experience. And with that, I'll pass it on to Patricia.
And I have one of your hats, Pearl, when I graduated, from university. So
Wow.
I'm grateful that that you do what you do. And I just want to speak to, as I listen to these women artists, and Marie hasn't spoken yet, and how when we look at other art galleries and it's, say, oil paintings, acrylic paintings, there is a different mindset in that. It shows up in our communities too, that's around ego. And what I'm listening to right now is egolessness, and that it's more about how we're connected. And just as I'm listening to the words and what's being said, I'm thinking, right, and this is the beauty. It's so subtle. That's the other thing. It's so subtle about this interconnectedness and this humility that exists. And I think that the art really speaks really what needs to be said. It's in the carving, it's in the weaving, it's in the applique, it's in the painting, whatever it is, it's in there. So so it's a really different way of thinking and being, and I'm just feeling emotional as it's all kind of landing on me in this moment. Yeah. So passing it on to you, Marie.
I'm not typical. Well, I'm not. I'm not one that I'm like Pearl. And I think a lot of women artists. To me, it's not about having my pieces in galleries. It's not about having my pieces owned by collectors or displayed somewhere or traveling the world. It's about my pieces being used. It's about my pieces coming back, our culture being reawakened. And when it comes to my weaving, for me, being in a show is kind of, I don't do this. It feels kind of strange to me to be having to talk about something that I put my heart and soul into. Took and so to have it hanging in public, especially that it's a family piece, it's kind of different for me, and I'm not. I don't know. It feels awkward to have this happening. I mean it, and then on the other hand, I'm glad it's hanging there because it'll maybe open the world's eyes to, I guess, the treasure of our women, how we approach things, how we approach our art, and how we share that with the world, the stories behind those, and the little pieces of ourselves that we leave in each piece. So thank you, Joanne, and thank you to the Bill Reid Gallery, and thank you. I'm really honored to be included with this amazing group of artists. wonderful. Thank you.
You're certainly welcome, Marie. And that's exactly why you're in the show. And that's exactly why Pearl's in the show. And that's why Arlene's in the show. And that's why Kelly's in the show. And that's why Dale's in the show. And that's why Patricia's in the show. You're all in this show because I see everything that you just talked about in all of you. I see it. And I'd like to go back to mindset for a minute. Why did I call this matriarch mindset? I Googled it. Dr. Google, grandfather Google, some people call it. A mindset is a set of beliefs, I'm reading now, that shapes how I make sense of the world and myself. It influences how I think, how I feel, and how I behave in any given situation. You have just described that in your own way, individually, 6 different ways, 6 different times. But it's all relevant to what we're talking about today, because the education of the world about our art is happening right in this very moment. And that's the power of art. And that's what I love about supporting artists, getting their work out there. Like, you're all very welcome. I enjoyed everything about this. Even the struggling was good because I learned so much through putting this project together. You know, triple checking spelling, big lesson. Anyway, I think this is coming along nicely. The next question is, do you think that women's art and storytelling are different? And we'll go in the order. That's the one. No, what is your opinion about being a woman artist? Sorry, I skipped a question there. What is your opinion about being a woman artist? And do you think that women's art and storytelling are different? Let's combine those 2 things, because I think they're related. So your opinion about being a woman artist, and do you think that your art and storytelling are different? So we'll start with Arlene.
Being a woman artist, when I first started, I didn't really pay much attention to the lack of, or the low population of female artists, because well, for the carving and the exposure that we get out in the galleries, because in my community, I grew up watching all my matriarchs creating. Like, that has never really stopped. The art that's created in the house, my aunties all doing their crochet, or they're working on a button blankets, or they're getting the regalia ready for the dance group. It was always there, like right along with the language and the storytelling, like learning our history as kids. So it wasn't about being male or female back then, aside from I knew that, being a matrilineal society, the women are the bosses. So you kind of grow up with that knowledge and that power, and you carry that with you throughout your whole life, wherever you go, representing your art. And, being that female carver, where it has been seen traditionally as the male part of the art form. I never got anything other than support. I was told who to ask. I was told for advice and tips and techniques and all this, and who I should get to work with. And they're all very, very notable artists in my community. And I'm just so pleased I could learn from them. And when I went to school, I wasn't treated like a girl. I was told to go outside and cut the block in half with this chainsaw, just like everybody else in the class. We had the safety protocols addressed, and they taught me how to use the power tools safely and, in the shop setting. And there was no, because you're a girl, we'll do that for you. There's none of that. We have that respect given as a human being. So being a woman artist, I think, my art does differs from the men, but it was described to me as being more curvy, more feminine, more delicate. The details, I had more range in how I presented my design ideas. They weren't like just set on these formulas of creating traditional art. They were based in that. And this artist that came from outside the community is a visiting artist from New Zealand. And he said, what I see in your art is it's generational. I see your past. I see your present, and all your kids are represented in a lot of your work. And I see the future. I see the stories you're passing down. And I see it more clearly in your art. And I think that's because you're a woman. And I was, really flattered by a lot of his compliments on my work, because he's a very notable carver in his community and in his country. And the other thing about being a woman artist is that the matriarchs, they hold us up to a very high standard. We're held to account in our behaviors, not just in general and to represent our will, but when we're out there, our position is we're representing our nation, we're representing our family, and we have to behave in a certain manner, to hold up that honor that we are out there representing them. So I feel that more, I think, as a woman, because it's something that we grew up with. We're the matriarchs. We're coming up as the matriarchs, and our matriarchs taught us everything, our behavior, and just the perfection, that achievement of taking that time, having that patience, and thinking quality over quantity. My mom taught me that, and she's working on all her very many array of crafts and arts that she'd be working on at the kitchen table. My sisters learned the same thing. My cousins, working together as a team on big group projects, or, serving at the feast hall. You learn to work as a team and rely on each other. So I don't know if that's a feminine thing for that part, but it's definitely a big part of me. On to Dale.
Yeah, well, for me personally, when I first started carving at the Frida D, it wasn't even the Frida Deasing school. The Lahaine art shop, that the owners volunteered their back room for us to work in. So, and Frida was there, and Dempsey, Glenwood, Don Yeomans, he started the same time as I did for the first time. And I heard, and somebody asked me this, they said, are you getting any flack from men, guys, because you're carving? And that's kind of considered not traditional. And I looked at them and I said, you know what? It's traditional now because I'm doing it. But a lot of guys, they didn't agree with that. So that was kind of interesting to hear that, right? And it's like, well, I'm here, I'm learning and stuff like that, eh? But being a woman artist, for me personally too, it's like, I've often heard people say, well, geez, I could really tell that was done by a woman. And I say, why? What do you mean? Well, it's so fine, it's so detailed, it's so smooth and really finished well. And they said, just got a woman's touch to it. And oh, okay, so that's kind of interesting to hear about. And but I think it is, personally, I think that being a woman artist, it's a lot harder. It's harder for us than men because we cook, we do dishes, we have to clean the house, we have kids, we have to raise kids, look after our elderly parents, and then we have to fit in our artwork, right? It's like, it's way harder because men, the wife cooks them dinner and they do the dishes and they clean the house and and so they likely just get up in the morning, have their coffee and go to work. But us women, we have things we gotta do, right? Who else is going to do the laundry and stuff? And I don't want to sound like sour grapes or anything, but I think that, like for instance, when we were finishing off our 30-foot totem pole that my brother and I were carving, and we just did it on spec. We didn't have a buyer or anything, right? We just thought, oh, we're going to do a 30-foot totem pole and worry about selling it later. But when we did sell it, they wanted us to go down to the P&E and be, you know, part of the P&E and finish the work on the pole, like painting and all the detail stuff. And you would not believe how many people came by and said to me, oh, I guess you're just doing the painting, eh? You're just doing the little fine little painting stuff. And I said, no. I said, I designed this totem pole. I roughed out this totem pole from the very beginning. And they go, what? Really? Like, they were so surprised, right? A woman totem pole carver? Like, how could she do that, you know? But yeah. So I was always interested to hear that, how they, because I was a woman, they thought I was just going to do the little fine little painting, you know, the easy stuff kind of thing, right? Yeah. And then the sour grapes thing I was talking about is I'm amazed that, like, the galleries, if you deal with the galleries, they give men artists better prices than women artists. And I say it's still a man's world. It really is. That's what I learned from the galleries that I deal with in Vancouver and Seattle and elsewhere. So, I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, that's not very good, really, right? I don't think it is. Yeah. And for me personally, too, is like, I design all my work from traditional stories. And I'm always more geared to the stories that have women in it. Because, you know, women aren't really heard. Like, you know, a lot of people don't even like want to ignore women and their thoughts and their stuff, their feelings and stuff. But I think women artists' work is different because of that fact that we, you know, we feel differently than men feel about certain things. And we're more apt to share those feelings than a man would. So that's like a really big difference. And that's just the way it is. So in that sense, I really do feel that our artwork is different than men. Yeah, we'll have to see what Kelli has to say about this. Kelli.
Yeah, I love everything that you said, Dale. I think, and lots of people are commenting in the chat as well. Just, you have such a unique perspective, having carved for so many years and been in the industry, and it's really appreciated. And I think, like, a lot of what you've said, myself as someone who hasn't been in the arts as long as you, I have experienced similar things, and I found that our Indigenous men, from what I've experienced personally, are very supportive of women artists. They hold us up, they teach us, they support us in any way they can. However, when you go into the gallery side of things and it's non-Indigenous men, I find that female artists, women artists aren't as well respected and aren't held in the same regard as men. And so I personally have avoided selling pieces in galleries. I would much rather deal with things privately, and that way too, like, you get to hear how somebody personally connects to your work, which is always a beautiful thing. And I mean, opportunities like this, getting to show at the Bill Reed Gallery, where the intention isn't to sell your pieces, but the intention is to share your work with the world. That's what I'm really enjoying doing as a woman artist. And I think hopefully in my lifetime, we will see things change a little bit more, and we will be more respected by the non-Indigenous people who are involved in the Northwest Coast art world. But at the end of the day, I don't make my work for them. I make my work for our people. I make my work to tell my stories, my own personal stories. And so, I mean, if it doesn't change, I'll still be okay. And yeah, I think for me personally, like as a woman, I use my art pieces to tell a lot of my own personal experiences. And Dale was kind of speaking to the fact that women are more likely to talk more about feelings and emotions. And I think that that really comes through in all of our art pieces, every single one of us who are involved in this show. And I think that that's maybe makes it a little more easier for some people to connect with our pieces because there is that emotional aspect to it. Yeah, and I think everybody's super familiar with Frida Diesing, obviously, and I think it's incredible that one woman had such an impact on Northwest Coast art, and the institution named after her has many men who teach, but they are incredibly supportive of women artists, and yeah, I just hope to see that continue. I think when you think of our art form after colonization, our art was, there was a risk of losing our art. Our totem poles were being cut down, they were put into museums, our pieces were being taken away, people were being told they can't practice any traditional art, not just art forms, any cultural practices. So I've often heard artists say, why would we tell women that they can't do a certain type of art form when we need all of our people to be revitalizing our work? So yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I'm interested to hear from Pearl.
Well, my opinion about being a woman artist, in our culture, women have always been the weavers. I wish I had the opportunity to learn this art form earlier in my life, but I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to have learned it at all. It was definitely a gift given by the ancestors. In the past, women's art, like weaving, used to be labeled as a craft or hobby. Now it's more recognized as art. This makes me feel more appreciated for the work I do. I also feel a great responsibility to help others in our nation, for those wanting to learn these weavings. I don't really have anything to say about women's art and storytelling, so I'm just going to pass it on to Patricia.
Thanks, Pearl. You know, what I'm hearing is we're talking about two different worlds. One is the world of art galleries where oppression is alive and real. And then the other is within our culture and within our communities. And I'm so thankful that Roy introduced me to all these different artists. Dale, when he heard you were in this, he said, "Oh, Dale." He was pretty happy. So yeah,
How am I
yeah.
surprised?
Okay. So, you know, when I look at it, I know as well as a female, I'll be 66 this year. So you know, I think about if I'm going to a house in one of our communities where males and females are meeting, I'm always going to look to where the females are congregating, and that I'll know that's my place. So we have that, and then I look at art, and it's like there isn't a place. I'd been invited, Roy's working a huge panel for YVR, and they said, do you want to try carving? And I'm like, ah! But it's like, no, those boundaries aren't there. There's a really deep generosity. Male or female doesn't, that's not the issue. The issue is passing on and inviting you to be part of something that's connected with the land. I think about weaving and all that has to be done to weave a basket. And for the wood panels and the poles, all that has to be done in order to get it to that place. And it's that part, I think, that the rest of the world isn't really in touch with. But now artists are beginning to film and bring people in to that part of it all. So yeah, so I look at gender issues in art, and I would say that my experience has been in our communities that there isn't that boundary. But I'm not a carver, so I didn't meet what Dale met, and really did the trailblazing in that area for the form and the celebration of the brilliance of the art. I've been so happy to have so many different opportunities. And I hope that people can see it in the painting that I do. And Marie.
I don't know. I know that for me, I don't know if I think of myself as an artist. That I think that's I have a hard time with that word. I don't know. I'm a weaver. I'm a weaver, and it's just part of who I am. It's not. I don't know. Maybe because I don't deal with galleries. A lot of our own people. Like I've done some robes, and I've been incredibly blessed to be supported by some very well-known carvers and artists in the world, just encouraging me to continue doing what I'm doing, continue making the pieces that I make. So I struggle with the world with that term, artist. And like Pearl, to me, it's sad that weavers continue to lag behind, and the way that the world looks at us is, well, that's a nice little craft, or that's a nice little hobby. But they don't know the work that goes into it. They don't know how much. When I go out and I still do this when I go out and gather bark, there's a whole process to that. There's a whole ceremony to that. It's very sacred to us to go out and gather bark. We're connected to those trees. We're connected to our land. We're connected to our territories, and those trees are a part of it. And so we go out, and there's a whole ceremony to that. And that's not an art. That's a part of who we are as a people, and especially as women, and especially as weavers. I know the carvers that go out and they honor the trees when they're asking for to take that tree and to carve something from it. And the weavers do that too. the mountain goats that used to give their lives for the robes. And so my art and my storytelling is different in that every piece that I weave, when somebody comes to me and says, I'd like to commission you to do a piece, it's done with them in mind. It's done with my ancestors, the ones that wove those old robes, the ones that created and made those old baskets. I'm connecting to them, and my spirit is also connecting to the person that I'm creating it for, so that it's designed and woven and put together specifically for that person, with hopefully, the way I look at it, with the support of my ancestors and the weavers that came before me. So that's how it's different for me. Joanne?
That's incredible, Marie. You've just summed it all up, why I did this show. That's exactly why. Because it's the thought, the past, present, future, that theme that's throughout this whole show, this hands of knowledge. Why did I call it that? Because that's exactly what you are. You all carry that knowledge and you use it in a respectful way. And yet you live in this modern world. So it's both. And that's a big responsibility. And look at the work. I mean, wow. Your driving force individually or as a collective of women artists, incredible. You are the driving force. And I really see, I like what Arlene said earlier about matriarchs. And somebody else commented about how they're the boss. They are. That is really everything you've talked about is the matriarch mindset. And I really thank you for taking time today to share. I think we have about 15 minutes left, so I'd like to give this back to Alia if I could. I think we've addressed how it educates people, and I know that you've all been influenced by matriarchs in your life. But there's both. There's matriarchs, and then there's the leaders in our communities who are not matriarchs. And even children. I've been inspired by children, which is the Balak, right? So I really thank you for your time today. And now I will pass it back to Alia and we'll have time for some questions. Thank you.
Joanne. Yeah, that was such a great discussion. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, now is the time. You can put them in the chat and I guess the artists can answer them to the best of their knowledge. And yeah. If not, if there's anything else that any of you artists would like to share also, you can definitely do that now too.
Well, I have something to say. I go down to the States a lot for the last 4 years, I've been going to Santa Fe Indian Market, and it is the biggest show in the world that they have with Aboriginal Indian artwork. And we didn't get accepted into this show until 4 years ago. They wouldn't allow Canadians in. So my brother and I were 2 of 15 artists that were selected, because you have to apply to get into the show. And I just wanted to say, talk about it, because it's when you go down there with Northwest Coast art, it is so different compared to the artwork that's down there, that a lot of people down there don't understand it. And so it feels to me like when I go down there, I'm kind of like breaking the trail for other Northwest Coast artists. And I get to share my stories, share my artwork to the public, and they're so hungry. They want to hear about it. They're searching for a connection with the artist. And when you tell them your stories and share it with them, it's unbelievable. It's just like their eyes light up. And they love Northwest Coast art down there. It's just amazing. And it's a great experience. And I'm so grateful that I have been doing that. I've actually been going down the States for 8 years to do shows down there. And I don't know why, but it was like my grandmother, Grandma Una, when she was older, I got to finally get to know her and stuff when I was 17. And she said one thing to me. She said, you know, one thing I've always regretted my whole life is that I never traveled much. And whenever I hear about an opportunity to travel and share my artwork and that, I always think about her, what she said to me. And that's why I do things like go to Hong Kong and carve a totem pole in 5 weeks and stuff like that. Like usually I would, you know, it's like I was so scared to go, but I went anyways, you know, kind of thing, right? But I just wanted to share that little thing. That's what I do. Usually.
Thank you, Dale.
Yeah, okay.
And I'd also like to say that Dale has been carving almost 50 years, but 48, 49 years, that's a long time to be dedicated to your art. And I know that the amazing work that you've done over the years, Dale, has had an impact on people. I think we have a question in the chat, Alia.
Yeah, so Linda said, can you tell us what young and up and coming women artists we should watch out for? I don't think that was meant for any specific artist, but maybe if you guys want to give out names, feel free.
I heard Kelli Clifton's pretty up and coming myself. And Arlene Ness, I mean, she's right there, I think we're all young and I think we're all up and coming. I don't want to say that's, I'm just kidding around here, but go ahead, girls.
Well, one person that comes to my mind, and I think she's a fantastic artist, is Leanne Spence. And she's just amazing artist. And I always tell her, I say, well, Leanne, you know what? If you ever move down south, like to Vancouver or wherever, you're going to be such a big hit, man, because she is so creative, right? Yeah, that's who comes to my mind.
I can think of a number. I don't know if I would say up and coming, but a good friend of mine, Allison Bremner, is an incredible Tlingit artist. She is often based out of Seattle, and her work is really cool. So I would recommend people check her out. Some of my classmates from the Frida Deasing School when I was there, Shauna Kiesman, Danica Nacarella, Kristen McKay, are all great women artists. And I would actually highly recommend just following the Frida Deasing School, because there are so many women artists who attend that institution and produce really great work. So, and there's, I mean, we could name several, but in Terrace, BC alone, like there's quite a few young female or women artists who are doing lots of great work there. So yeah, it's just a matter of following certain pages, I would say, and you could always send one of us a message later. I'd be happy to kind of put a list together of people I would say you should keep an eye on.
Thanks, Kelly.
Okay. Well, I guess if there's no more questions, then I guess we could just wrap everything up. Yeah, Kelly, if you'd like to put those into the chat, that would be great for everybody if they want to look at those artists.
I would like to say a big thank you to Joanne for putting this show together, and to you, Alea, and Bill Reed Gallery team that put everything together. Thank you very much. And to the Arts Council, Canada Arts Council as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, all of you. It was really great to hear your voices outside of our opening. We go a little bit more in depth of your practice and what it means to you, and it was really nice for you to share that with all of us, and it was great. And thank you so much to Joanne for coordinating this with all of the questions and everything, and really bringing out your voices. I would say it was really great to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you also to our sponsors, Yes Canada Council, BC Arts Council, Prince Rupert Arts Community Council, First Peoples Cultural Arts Council, and then the City of Vancouver. And for those who are interested, we'll also be having a couple of workshops with some of the artists from Hands of Knowledge. So if you want to sign up for our e-newsletter, you can keep up to date with our programming, and you'll be able to know what exactly is happening and when we'll be having those. Yeah.
Thank you, Alia. And also, I had a question about the online catalog. Beth had mentioned something about that, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen it. I have the physical copies, and I know they're selling them at the Bill Reed Gallery.
I think maybe she had meant to maybe to access them on our online shop.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That clarifies that.
If you'd like to go ahead, Kelly, you can feel free to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of close off in some Alia. Ab lukwal doir sit tratnis nusum wilga goidik sisum sagyatwan luam godu niwal nisum ab lukwal adzik godu da tratni hanatnach gwaach ab lukwal luam godu sagyatwan giamga godu doir sit nusum.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our panel discussion, and we hope to see you in the future for other events. Thank you.
Thank you.